You're listening to the Bare Metal Cyber Prepcast, created to help you succeed in your PMP certification journey. Learn more at baremetalcyber.com, where additional prepcasts, books, and training materials await. Let's get started. In this lab, we focus on triage, which means choosing the very first action to take in urgent or uncertain scenarios. The word first matters. It is not about the entire solution. It is about the opening move that enables good decisions or safe progress. Think of triage as stabilizing the situation so the project does not drift into panic or improvisation. Once stabilized, you can analyze deeper and plan next steps. But without the right first move, everything that follows may be off course. A reliable rule of thumb is this: if impact is unknown, your first action is to analyze or consult the correct artifact. Evidence before escalation. Artifacts are the guardrail scope baselines, RTMs, risk registers, change logs, contracts, compliance registers, or backlog policies. If you skip them, you start with instinct rather than governance. That usually leads to rework. The first move must therefore anchor in evidence. The exam repeatedly tests whether you recognize this discipline under time pressure. Another rule is to protect baselines. Scope, schedule, and cost baselines define the project's commitments. Cadence and backlog discipline play the same role in Agile. Your first action should never undermine these without analysis. Escalation is sometimes correct, but only with a plan. Escalating just because you feel pressure is not professional stewardship. The first step must set you up to present evidence, options, and impacts. That is the mindset for this lab. The first scenario combines incident management and compliance. A severe defect appears in user acceptance testing just days before go-live. To complicate matters, an audit is scheduled in 3 weeks, so evidence will be scrutinized. The wrong instinct is to patch quickly and move on, because that ignores compliance requirements. The artifact to consult first is the emergency change policy, paired with rollback procedures and approval logs. These ensure speed with traceability. The correct first action here is to invoke the emergency change process, prepare a triage plan with rollback included, and capture approvals immediately. This creates a record for the audit while still addressing the defect in time for release. Delaying the launch unnecessarily may waste value. Patching without records risks audit failure. Escalating without invoking the policy signals disorganization. The emergency change path is the PMI-aligned move. It provides speed, evidence, and safety together. The second scenario is a scope conflict. A sponsor believes a feature meets requirements, but the QA team says acceptance criteria evidence is missing. The sign-off meeting is close, and tempers flare. The trap here is to side with the sponsor or QA based on authority or gut feeling. The artifact to consult first is the requirements traceability matrix, backed by the acceptance criteria. Those documents anchor what was promised and how it must be proven. Without them, you are debating opinions. The correct first action is to facilitate a brief verification session anchored in the RTM and acceptance criteria. By checking the requirement and its linked evidence, you transform the conflict into an evidence-based conversation. This protects quality and keeps governance intact. Signing off on intent breaks process. Escalating immediately skips facilitation. Adding tests secretly after sign-off erodes trust. The disciplined first move is artifact-driven verification. The third scenario shifts to procurement. A vendor requests what they call a minor change near a phase gate. Testing is scheduled soon, and the vendor insists there will be no impact. The temptation is to approve quickly to keep the relationship smooth. But procurement discipline matters most under pressure. The artifacts to consult first are the contract change clause, the statement of work, and if relevant, the incentive terms, including the point of total assumption. These define whether a change truly carries risk or not. The correct first action is to request a written impact analysis from the vendor that references the contract clause, and then check the PTA and incentive terms before making any decision. This protects the organization and keeps the relationship professional. Approving verbally erodes traceability. Rejecting outright may harm trust unnecessarily. Reconciling paperwork later is non-compliant. Contracts are not obstacles. They are the artifact path for discipline changes. The fourth scenario introduces an external shock. A new retention rule is announced mid-iteration, and it directly affects the system your project is delivering. Compliance is not optional. The temptation is either to freeze everything until guidance is complete, or to ignore it until later. Both are extremes. The first artifact to consult is the compliance register, and from there you extend analysis across scope, schedule, cost, quality, risk, and compliance. Without this impact analysis, you are flying blind. The correct first action is to run a rapid impact analysis and draft a minimal compliance slice that can be delivered quickly. This stabilizes cadence while showing regulators that the team is responsive. Freezing the iteration kills rhythm. Ignoring the rule risks penalties. Only the compliance slice approach honors both cadence and compliance. The artifact is the compliance register, the move is analysis, and the output is a documented slice plan. That is triage in practice, an opening move that makes later decisions viable. Together, these four scenarios show how triage thinking works. The first move is not the entire solution. It is the stabilizer. Emergency changes start with the emergency policy. Scope disputes start with the RTM and acceptance criteria. Vendor changes start with written impact analysis under the contract. Regulatory shocks start with compliance registers and impact analysis. In each case, the key word is first. Once that stabilizer is in place, later steps flow naturally. The pitfall to avoid is treating the first move as the final fix. Signing off on intent, patching without logs, approving verbally, or freezing work all look decisive but destabilize governance. The discipline project manager resists that temptation. They pause, check the artifact, run the analysis, and make the first move that buys clarity and preserves evidence. That is what the exam rewards, and it is what real sponsors and regulators respect. So far you have handled defects, scope conflict, vendor surprises, and regulatory shifts. The next set of triage scenarios will add stakeholder silence, flow breakdowns, and benefits drift. Each will challenge you in a new way, but still rely on the same rhythm. Artifact first, impact before action, triage step before escalation. Practice this rhythm until it becomes reflex, and you'll carry it with you into both the exam and your projects. Episode 89. Scenario Lab. Rapid Triage. What to do first. Second half, 15+ paragraphs. The fifth triage scenario deals with a very human but common challenge: stakeholder silence. A critical decision owner has gone quiet just as a milestone approaches. The team is waiting for a green light, and without it, progress may stall. The wrong instinct is to either wait passively or escalate emotionally with no plan. The question is, what do you do first? The artifact that governs here is the Communications Management Plan. This plan specifies escalation paths, service-level agreements for response times, and backup contacts. It ensures that silence doesn't paralyze delivery. The correct first action is to consult the communications plan and trigger escalation according to the defined rules. At the same time, you prepare a summary of options and impacts to present when the escalation is raised. This protects cadence while showing governance discipline. Waiting silently risks delay. Escalating without a plan makes you look reactive rather than professional. By using the plan, you ensure the escalation is structured, predictable, and supported by evidence. That is the hallmark of professional triage. The sixth scenario is about flow breakdown, especially in Kanban or hybrid teams. The in-progress column is ballooning, and cycle times are spiking. Stakeholders are demanding forecast dates, but the system is clearly unstable. The instinct might be to add more people or to run more meetings. Both of these are traps, because they treat symptoms rather than the system. The artifact to consult here is the board policy, specifically work in progress limits, and the cumulative flow diagram. These provide the evidence to see exactly where the bottleneck sits. The correct first action is to set or restore WIP limits and swarm the team onto the bottleneck. By doing so, you stop starting and start finishing. Once flow stabilizes, you can reforecast using throughput data. Adding people immediately is costly and rarely effective in the short term. Ignoring the ballooned work and hoping it clears itself is unrealistic. Running more status meetings only consumes capacity. The disciplined first move is to enforce policies, focus on bottlenecks, and let data guide forecasts. This is flow triage, stabilize before promising dates. The seventh scenario highlights benefits drift after release. Adoption numbers are below target, users are calling the help desk, and no one seems accountable. The temptation is to declare benefits will improve in the long tail or to push more features. But that avoids the governance responsibility of benefits ownership. The artifact to check first is the benefits register. This register should show each benefit, its metric, its forecast, and its designated owner. Without revisiting it, you are flying blind. The correct first action is to meet with the benefit owner or assign one if it is missing. Analyze the friction data, such as user feedback or support tickets. Then plan minimal fixes or job aids and reforecast benefits honestly. This triage step reestablishes ownership, shows transparency, and protects credibility. Ignoring adoption issues damages trust. Adding features without analysis risks wasted work. Masking the problem with partial metrics is misleading. The first action must be governance-driven. Restore ownership and clarity. Only then can long-term fixes succeed. To reinforce these lessons, let's run a quick lightning round. Imagine the first stem. A vendor asks for approval on a no-impact change. What's your first move? You would say, first, I request a written impact analysis and check the contract change clause. Now the second stem, a defect appears just before sign-off, and the sponsor says, ship anyway. What's your first move? You would say, first I review the acceptance criteria and traceability matrix to verify evidence. Notice how in both cases the answer starts with the artifact. That is triage in practice. Lightning rounds are effective because they train you to answer in the form. First, I would ver and check artifact. That phrasing forces you to pair action with evidence. It keeps you from jumping to vague solutions or instinctive escalations. When you practice out loud, you cement the reflex. On exam day, even silently, that phrasing will guide you. Verb plus artifact equals triage discipline. Now let's distill the heuristics you can carry forward. The first is, if impact is unknown, analyze before acting. The second is, if compliance is touched, follow the policy path and capture evidence. The third is, if a vendor requests change, require written impact analysis and use the contract mechanism. The fourth is, if flow pain emerges, enforce WIP limits and focus on the bottleneck first. These heuristics are short, spoken, and easy to recall under pressure. Saying them aloud before practice sessions primes your brain to use them reflexively. Each heuristic also maps to a PMI principle. Analyzing before action reflects integrated change control. Policy and evidence for compliance reflect quality and governance domains. Vendor change mechanisms tie to procurement management. Flow triage aligns with agile delivery principles. By recognizing the alignment, you reassure yourself that the best next action is not just a trick. It is PMI's language of professionalism. The exam is not testing trivia. It is testing whether you can apply these principles under stress. Consider how these triage lessons play out in real projects. Stakeholder silence does happen, and comms plans are what save you from endless waiting. Flow breakdowns are common, and WIP limits are what stabilize delivery. Benefits drift is one of the biggest challenges in post-project life, and registers are the only way to keep ownership visible. In each case, the reflex to start with the artifact and make a small stabilizing move is what prevents escalation into crisis. Triage is leadership in miniature. Another reflection is that Triage teaches humility. The first action is rarely glamorous. It is often a quiet step. Check a register, invoke a policy, confirm ownership. But these quiet steps stabilize the system and earn trust. Sponsors, auditors, and teams see that you don't panic or appease you. Follow process even under pressure. Over time, this builds credibility. People learn that when things get messy, you are the one who stabilizes first and decides later. That reputation is worth more than any single deliverable. As you integrate this lab into your prep routine, practice in 2 stages. First, run slow debriefs. Write out first action answers with the artifact named. Then, run rapid sprints, 30 seconds per item, speaking first, I would verb, and check, artifact, alternate between the 2 modes. The slow debrief deepens understanding. The rapid sprint cements reflex. Both matter. Exams test reflex under time, but projects reward depth when time allows. Practicing both prepares you for both arenas. The triage mindset is more than exam technique. It is professional culture. Every project faces shocks, defects, disputes, silence, or regulation. The project manager who reacts with panic, appeasement, or improvisation destabilizes the system. The project manager who reacts with artifact-first triage stabilizes it. That's the difference between firefighting and stewardship. This lab is rehearsal for being the steady hand when everyone else is rushing. Thanks for tuning in to the Bare Metal Cyber Prepcast, your trusted source for cybersecurity news and insights. Remember to subscribe at baremetalcyber.com so you never miss an update. And visit cyberauthor.me for best-selling cybersecurity books that equip you with expert knowledge. Until next time, stay secure and stay vigilant.